Good evening. This evening I'm going to be reading from John 9, 1-11. As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, It was not that this man sinned, or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. Then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud, and he said to him, Go, wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar were saying, Is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, It is he. Others said, No, but he is like him. He kept saying, I am the man. So they said to him, Then how were your eyes opened? He answered, The man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight. I love this story. I hope you do too. It's one of my favorites. Okay, these are the things that I'm getting out of this as I'm reading it. So I think there was a common idea back then, and it can be a common idea today, I don't know, that if somebody's born with something wrong with them, a birth defect or whatever, that it's because the parents sinned. Of course, I don't know how. Now we're born into sin, but the child wouldn't have had. You can't sin before you're born. Not in actual actions, but we're all born into sin. But but they thought that somebody sinned and that's why that happened. So I think that was in the case of Job. They just assumed that Job sinned, and that's why those bad things were happening to him. And so Job had to keep fighting back and forth with his friends, and contending with them, no, that he hadn't sinned, but they wouldn't believe him. And they kept trying to accuse him of sinning, because they must have sinned for those bad things to happen. And if you have that frame of mind, you need to put it aside, because it's just not biblical. So anyway, this is part I really like about it. Jesus said it was not that this man sinned. I have a hard time with those words. Or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. Now, I love that. Why do I love that? The family that I was brought up in, my father was an abuser, one of the abusers of the worst kind. He was mean, he was hateful, angry all the time, but he would, it was kind of a split personality, like a Jekyll Hyde, that sometimes he would be okay, and then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, wham, you didn't know what was coming. So, but in Psalm 139, it says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and I was knit together by God, in the womb of my mother. So what is that saying? That God put me in that family. God knew I was going to be abused. He knew that I was going to have a terrible father. And my mother she was a good woman, but she was emotionally distant, emotionally neglectful. She didn't always pay attention to what was going on. And she didn't protect us for the longest time. But he was abusing her too, So the point is that God puts us in situations sometimes that don't make sense. He puts us in situations where it just seems like, this is just wrong, or we might even feel as though God God had no control over that, but he did, if we truly understand his sovereignty. So God he allows things to happen. He allows things to happen in our lives. He puts us in situations sometimes that are going to be hard and difficult, and we may not understand. What does it say here? This was so that God might display his works in this man, And, God has done that in my life, or I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be making these videos right now. That God allowed the things he allowed in my life to make me who I am, to give me the passion that I have, to give me the love for God that I have, to give me the hunger for righteousness and godliness, and to make me concerned for those who are trapped in sin, who are living in idolatry and adultery, and to show them that there's a way out. They don't have to live like that. And if I hadn't been through the things that I've been through, I wouldn't be prepared for this. So it's true that God allows things to come into our lives. He allows us to be in situations a lot of times that don't make sense. And we might want to try to blame somebody or something else for why those things happen. But we have to realize that the God that we serve is a sovereign God, and he has his reasons for why he does what he does. They don't always have to make sense to us, because we can't see the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end like he can. So we don't really know all the reasons why he does what he does. And so that was the first thing that I really like here, is that not everything we might see as a tragedy is a tragedy. Like Joseph's brothers selling him into slavery. And what did he say to them many years later? He says, what Satan intended for evil, God intended for good. That's really the gist of it, that God, in his sovereignty, allows things in our lives so that he can then display his works through our lives, because then we are moldable. We are humbled. We are people who are ready to have him make us into who he wants us to be. And so that's the first thing here. The next one is we must work the works of him he says, we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. Okay. I was just talking to one of my grandchildren today. He just turned 14 today. And we were just talking about life. He's a really smart boy, very smart boy. And he said something about, he could die, in the next few seconds. And I said, yeah, we all could, that we're not guaranteed the next second. We're not guaranteed the next minute. We're not guaranteed the next day. We have to take advantage of the time that we are given, because we don't know how long we're going to have, So just don't play around. Don't play around. I don't mean don't have fun. You can have fun. I have fun. You see me smiling, but don't take life for granted and think that you can just do whatever you want. God has put each one of us on this earth for a time and for a purpose. And he has something that he made us for, and that he took us through these things to prepare us and to make us into the people that he wants us to be. So don't take life for granted. Don't take the next breath for granted. Find out what God's will is for your life and do it, and make best use of your time, the time that you have been given and granted by God, for however long that is. Okay. Okay, so then he healed the man. Now, he didn't just say, you're healed. He could have, right? He didn't just put his hands on him and say, you're healed. What did he do? He did something interesting. He spit on the ground, he made mud, and he put the mud on the man's eyes, and he told him to go and wash in a pool of Siloam. Now, I had looked this up years ago, and I don't remember, but it wasn't just like right next door, This was a blind man, so he had to go walk to that pool, and then he had to do what God told him to do. I mean, what Jesus, who is God, told him to do. So, and the man obeyed, and he went. And this is a picture of our salvation. We have to walk according to the Spirit and not according to the flesh. We have to obey the Lord. We have to do what He says for us to have spiritual healing. And then physical healing. Even sometimes it's a process. And our spiritual healing is a process. We don't just get saved, done deal, and now we're good to go. No, we have to walk the walk. We have to walk the talk. Don't just talk it, do it. But it's a process. It's a process of salvation. It's a process of sanctification. Every day, we must walk, and at the end, because we've obeyed the Lord, then we will have that healing. The last part is the man then gave testimony, and that's what we need to do too. Not only do we need to be healed spiritually, sometimes physically by the Lord, but when He heals us, we have that healing, then we are to give testimony that He is the one who healed us and that the healing came from Him. He is the one who saved us. He is the one who changed us. He is the one who's responsible for the changes in our lives, So just give testimony to Him, and that's the encouragement for today.